Hi, it's Jasmin. You know, that girl who did you-know-what way before the internet ever existed. Join me and my special guest every week as we talk about anything and everything because nothing is too taboo. So punch your ticket and get on board the Krazy Train with me, Jasmin St. All aboard! Welcome to a new episode of Krazy Train Podcast. From the UK to Australia to the USA and all over the place, one of the hottest names in deathmatch wrestling is Danny Darko. Not Donnie Darko, but Danny Darko. A lot of you who follow him on social media might know about that barbecue incident on his back, which seems to be healing pretty well, but let's have a chat with him and see why he'd even do something like that to his body. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'm very grateful for this because I know the condition of your back is not exactly at its peak finest right now.
Hey, no, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to talk to you.
What exactly happened to your back, by the way? Because I saw all the photos. I don't see exactly. I saw the move, but what was that? Was that some kind of a grater or something that went on your back?
No, I don't know if you have them in America, but here in all the supermarkets, like our version of Walmart, they sell disposable barbecues. So it's like a one-use barbecue. So we had a one-use barbecue. We set it alight, and it, like big choke slam on it. It burnt me pretty bad in about 3 seconds.
Okay, so aside from that, I mean, you are making many splashes across the Atlantic. Everyone does talk about you when it comes to deathmatch wrestling in the USA, the UK, and even people in Australia have heard the name Danny Darko. Not Donnie Darko, by the way, Danny Darko, the way cooler one. What even got you started in this business? Because it's so dangerous and so outrageous.
Oh, so with deathmatch wrestling specifically, I was always a fan of deathmatch wrestling. But I never thought that would be the way I would go with it. I always thought when I was getting into wrestling that I was going to be main eventing in Noah with Kenta. But eventually it got to the point where that wasn't happening. And like probably my best friend in the business, Big F and Joe, needed somebody to break glass on. So it was a one-off, one-time opportunity, and then it just snowballed. And it's just every single month now, like several times a month, every now and then, twice a day. It just keeps going and going.
So wait a second. So as a friend, you did a favor to your friend Big F and Joe. It's okay. You can go ahead and break glass on me. It's totally fine.
Well, to be honest, he wanted me to break the glass on him, but because I wrestle in just the trunks and the kick pads, I thought it'd be a better visual if I took the glass. And then, funny enough, that very first time I took the glass, I ended up nearly bleeding out and spent the night in A&E.
You have life insurance, right?
I have life insurance and healthcare is free in this country.
Yeah, in the UK, also in France as well. We get that free healthcare there. In Norway, how good it is, I don't know. I haven't really used it yet. I don't want to have a reason to, but I do notice one thing in the UK. You guys have actual medics there, like an ambulance. Was there an ambulance at the CXW show or the CX dub?
I don't think there was an actual ambulance, but there would have been definitely several medics, first aiders, and because it was in the middle of the city, like it would have been seconds before an ambulance would have been there. So.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything that bad yet, except once. What are your thoughts on fire spots, and have you ever done one before?
That was my first ever time doing fire. I always, I told people 100 times I'm not doing fire. I didn't want to do fire ever. That was my limit. My second or third show in America, I vetoed the fire, saying I don't think we need it. I don't want to do the fire. But then, like everything I've said no to, like razor wire, everything, eventually I just do it.
And what has been your experience so far working in the territories that you have? Like, do you see any differences? Like, personally speaking, I feel as though the UK death matches there are done way differently and way better than some of the places I've worked at in the States. For example, the no rope barbed wire match that time was done way better.
I think that's partly because we don't have so much deathmatch in this country, and it's very new. So everybody that's involved in the scene is like trying very hard to make sure it's not a joke. I'm not saying it's a joke anywhere else, but You do one no rope barbed wire, it's easy to spend hours on it. You do 10, it gets a bit more difficult.
Yeah, I feel as though sometimes in the States, I don't know what they're gonna do next. Are they gonna like snuff each other out with guns or something? I've seen body bag matches many times in my life. Where's somewhere that you'd like to wrestle that you've not wrestled so far?
Like the dream is Japan. I'd love to do a couple of death matches in Japan. It's just the flights might be a bit killer. Like 12 hours on a flight, like 8 is bad enough. Might have to stop somewhere on the way.
When I went there, it was like 18 hours, I think. And the flight left early in the morning. It really screwed up my sleep because I got there the next day, right? And I'm just like, oh, wait, we're supposed to work later today, duh. So it was straight from the airport to the hotel, like for a couple of hours and just time to go to the venue. But it's really it's a very different experience. And I know Dory Funk just had a match yesterday, what was it, a flaming table match or flaming something or another, but he just did something
The
yesterday. 83 years old, man. Who were some of your idols growing up when you were watching wrestling?
Okay, yeah, it was an exploding barbed wire match, I
Yeah.
believe. I haven't seen it yet, but I will be looking it out.
Ugh.
So growing up, my idols in wrestling were two people specifically, and that's from when I was a very young kid. It was Sting and Ric Flair, because everyone I knew was a WWF fan. Everybody in my school, when I was a little kid, was all WWF fans. But I didn't have cable TV, so I had 4 channels growing up, and those 4 channels, the only wrestling I got was WCW Worldwide on a Saturday. So all I ever seen was Sting and Ric Flair. So I never had Warrior, I never had Hogan, not really. So definitely, when I was very young, it was Sting. Every single time I wanted to be Sting. As I got a bit older, Ric Flair.
So one thing I've noticed is there's been this small wave of guys coming out of the UK, like Big Effing Joe, Lou Nixon, Tim Strange, Leo Darwin, now yourself, and Clint Margera. Is there something in the water that makes you guys really good wrestlers? Because you guys have great ring psychology, I've noticed, and you do not overdo the weapons in the death matches.
I think that's just British wrestling in general, because England's obviously it's a lot smaller country. So we have thousands of wrestlers. Every town has several wrestling promotions. So if you want to get booked and you want to get out into, especially if you want to leave like 100 miles from your front door, you need to be better than everybody else. So I'm sure they are terrible British wrestlers, like they are terrible wrestlers all over the world. But every wrestler, even the bad wrestlers in England, they have the basics down. So it makes it a lot easier. And when you get to the point where you're starting bleeding and cutting each other, you just safer because you've worked all these shows, you worked shows in front of little children for like 10, 15 years. Not blood, obviously, but you work these shows in front of little children. Nobody wants to get hurt in front of kids. So it grows from there.
What if I told you there was a 5-year old Japanese girl that goes to all of the shows, like all of the big Japan shows? Would
Oh,
you
I
believe
believe
me?
it, and I know in America there's like kids go to shows, but in England, deathmatch wrestling is strictly over 18. There was an event like 2 or 3 years ago where it was very much a what do you call them? A mud show. Backyarders basically, and one guy used a strimmer on another guy, and the crowd was predominantly under 10 years old, and it was in the newspapers, it was on TV, it nearly cancelled wrestling in this country. So we're very
Jesus
careful.
Christ. Were these kids alone or did they have parents or something?
No, they had their parents with them, and I'm sure they loved it. I'm sure they absolutely loved it. I'm sure the parents loved it, but somehow it got to the local papers, and then the locals went to the national papers, and there was just a lot of hullabaloo about a lot of shit.
Another good thing I noticed, like I noticed Tim Strange has all these things, and like Lunixon probably has about 50 different t-shirts, maybe 100. I have no idea. You guys have your merchandising down. What kind of merchandise do you have that you sell a lot of? Do you sell your bloody trunks also?
Okay, so we'll start with the trunks. I used to sell my trunks more often, but I think the market's dropped out a little bit on that. And the guy I was making my trunks, who's like, I'm very happy with the quality. It just takes a bit longer than it used to. So the time to money ratio is not there. But I sell quite a few T-shirts, like 8x10s are always a seller. Luckily, we have a bunch of guys who are just like diehard deathmatch fans who are just happy to finally see it. So they design stuff, they help us get it printed, all that stuff. Like the guys at Deathmatch Outlaws, invaluable. Everything they design nearly all my stuff. They help me get it printed, they help me sell it, and it's just incredible.
Danny Thompson? Is that his
No,
name?
Danny Douglas. Like he,
Danny Douglas, yeah. Okay,
yeah.
I always get my names mixed up with. I was just, yeah, yeah, he's done a lot of stuff for us too. Like he did some T-shirts for me before. Now I'm just thinking about these trunks, okay? Because I just sold my shoes to someone, and it was a deathmatch fan, believe it or not, because you don't know
Yeah.
whose blood was on there, and there have been some legends in the ring, who spilled blood, whether it's aside or inside of the ring. Now, who buys the trunks of other men? Is it mostly women? Were they other guys, or do you just not know? Are you looking for a safe way to bet online where there is something for everyone, including yourself? Then go to betonline.ag, where I am sure you will find something. Don't forget, it's betonline.ag for the most variety and the safest way to bet online.
I have my suspicions on who it is, but I don't want to like call anybody out on this stuff. But I've sold trunks to women and men. Like I know some of the guys buy like loads of gear, like from everybody. I think a couple of years ago, even one of the fans sold some trainers they were wearing at a Game Changer show. So people just want to be a part of the scene, I guess, and they just want something to put on the shelf.
God, it's like I don't really want to meet the people that buy my stuff, but some guy sent me photos. He had mannequins with dark wigs on them with my clothes, and it's really. Then he started showing up at like every single show I go to in the States, and it's just really disturbing sometimes. It's like, what do you do at night with these? Like, it's gotta not. I can't really help having a real girlfriend, like a real life girlfriend. So moving along with this now, when you first got into wrestling, is it everything you cracked at? Like, is it everything you expected it to be? You're not up there making like the big bucks, like a lot of the like we're not making the big bucks like WWE, but I mean we have fun and it's like adventures and stories.
Yeah, 100%. Like I had no illusions when I was a kid, and I decided I want to be a professional wrestler when I was about 13, 12.
Okay.
I had no dreams to do anything else. When I was leaving school, everyone was talking about going to college and all this shit, and I was like, I'm gonna go wrestling college. Turns out it wasn't a college; it was like a room and a ring that was falling apart. But yeah, I never thought I was going to be on TV. Like I've done more than I ever thought I would. I've done more than 99.9% of people ever do, and 100%. It's about the stories. It's about the people you meet. It's like I've had stories that people wouldn't even believe, so you can't even tell people these stories. But it's been a hell of a life. We're only halfway done.
Well, what's one of the stories didn't involve like the Iron Sheik, Abby the Butcher, playing a rib on someone?
I don't know if I can tell the stories like publicly, but no, I've had very little run-ins with like a lot of those kind of guys. Um, like yeah, the closest I ever got was Jake the Snake Roberts, but I missed him by a show. So my dealings with like the big legendary names are like non-existent, really. I did one show years and years and years and years and years ago, and New Jack was on the show,
Oh,
and New Jack was giving a big speech backstage, and everybody was huddled around him. It was a lot of fun, and he did a big speech about Vince McMahon, and then he pointed at one guy and he asked him specifically what he would do in that situation, and then when the guy responded very proudly with his response, New Jack said, "Good, because I'm going to take the money, I'm going to take the booking, I'm going to get on the video games, on the magazine covers, and I'm going to be rich, and you're going to be here." And he told that story he repeated himself like 3 times, obviously because of short-term memory loss. And he did it again, and the next time the guy didn't respond, and New Jack just keeps staring the guy down. He's staring the guy down until the guy finally responds, and he did the same thing again, same thing again. It was hilarious, real funny. And then so on his entrance, New Jack's coming through the curtain, and it's like a sports, like a big empty hall, just a
uh-huh.
curtain, black curtain, and all the boys are standing behind the curtain because everyone wants to see New Jack, and his music's playing, and then just as it's coming time for him to come out, he puts his hands up, he grabs hold of the big curtain, he rips the whole fucking curtain down. So like 900 people can see all the wrestlers going through their matches, and just New Jack standing there with the curtains in his hands, and makes his entrance, and all the wrestlers are scattering around trying to get out of view. That's the biggest name story I have.
That's I haven't heard that story. Like I was around him long enough and outside of there as well and other shows, and we used to rip people. Like we rip people really bad. And it's a good thing neither of us have received the receipts for them. Missy Hyatt still has yet to get me back for making her drive 4 hours or 3 hours from where she was to work on a show with me to show I wasn't even booked on. But to this day, I think when she gave, no, you know what? I stand corrected. She gave Gene Simmons my number a few years before that, and he was like stalking me on my phone and at the hotel till 4 in the morning, and it's just this long, horrible story. So I think in a way I got her back then by having her drive 3, 4 hours south to work on a show I wasn't even really booked on. But it's wrestling. You have many years to go before you retire. How many years have you been doing this so far?
I was 18. I first started wrestling, and I wrestled for 3 years, like every couple of weeks. And then I got to a point where I just didn't like being around wrestling anymore. I didn't like the people I was wrestling with, and I was just like, I hate this shit. So I stopped, like retired for 7 years. I did nothing. And then after 7 years, Joe started wrestling with Rise Underground,
Yeah.
and it looked cool. And I ain't seen Joe in a couple of years. So I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna get my feet wet. And that was about 7 years ago now, something like 8 years ago. And since then, it's just been barreling out of control.
You're going to keep going. I'll tell you, this thing, it's like I retired for quite some time and I came back 2.5 years ago, and it wasn't something I wanted to really do. But once you're in, you're in. It's like a sickness of some type. And by the way, blood makes me extremely squeamish. So don't ask me what I'm doing around it. If you weren't wrestling, what do you think you'd be doing?
Honestly, probably nothing. I'd probably be sitting at home, like staring at a TV, just bored out my wits. Because that's what I did for 7 years. I played video games and I just got like skinny, fat, and just did nothing for 7 years. And like it got to a point where I was like, I'm doing nothing with my life. And I thought I was pretty good at wrestling when I was wrestling, so I figured I'm just going to try again. So, like, maybe when I was a little kid, I had stupid dreams, like I was going to be the next Michael Jackson. That was never going to happen. So,
Can you sing?
no, of course I can't sing. If I could sing, I wouldn't be bleeding everywhere.
Well, it's never too late to start. I see people like in their 30s, like picking up on careers that you wouldn't think you could actually start at 30 or even 60 for like older actors that I know, like people that old, but then they become super successful. It's crazy when you have more success later in your life. Um, what are your thoughts on intergender matches, like women versus men in these death matches? Because it's a very common thing.
I think it's a special occasion kind of match, like a special attraction. Every now and then, it's a big deal. If it's every single show, I don't think it's warranted. I just I feel bad about how bad you can get scarred. You understand? Like, and I know a lot of the girls doing it. Like, so Casey's got scars. Casey Kirk's got scars, and she's a very attractive woman. But and she's probably one of the best in the world, better than most of the men doing it. Probably better than I am. But I just think if it's every single show, it doesn't mean anything. You get me? And
Oh, I
that's not just
agree.
deathmatch wrestling. That's not just deathmatch wrestling. That's every kind of wrestling. At the end of the day, okay, it's all kayfabe, but it's based in like it's kayfabe, but it's based on reality. And if the further away you get from the reality, the less impact the story tells.
I think like sometimes it's overdone because if I want to watch female like an all wrestling, like I want to watch more female matches, I'll watch Glow. And not to sound misogynistic, but I miss the days when we just had a lot of matches. Like it was the heavyweight, it was this title, that title, but then all of a sudden, there's okay. I think it's great girls can wrestle and everything. I think it's awesome. I learned to work, but because of my size, I won't wrestle, or I probably won't. But you know, it's to have like half the show with women's matches, and there's only so much of an attention span you can keep. But I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. It should be like here and there. with the death matches, it surprises me. Did you ever see Lindsay Snow?
Yes, yeah, I met her. Yeah,
She's
cool
really
girl.
pretty, and like her face, just she has the scars. I don't know what makes some of these girls tick sometimes, but yeah, it's a pretty scary world out there. What's the most dangerous weapon you've used so far?
Probably a barbecue.
The barbecue. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
probably the barbecue, man. No, to be fair, no, it hurt, and it really fucking hurt, but it wasn't super dangerous. Trying to think, like some of the silly stuff, like I've done razor wire. I didn't get really anything off the razor wire. The panes of glass always worried me, but I've never been cut off a pane of glass, not badly anyway. It's only really recently I keep getting cut, and the very first time I did light tubes, I got a bad cut in my back. That it was only maybe 2 inches long, but it was at least 3 inches deep. So I was in hospital overnight for it, and they had me all like hooked up for blood transfusions and shit. But since then, I've been pretty alright. Even so this cut here
Yeah.
was just a light tube, just a basic bitch light tube, and it wasn't deep. It was just like really long, and the skin opened up. But once it was stitched, it was fine.
You're so casual about this. I mean, it's like a weekly occurrence for a lot of people. Like I've seen Big Joe's injuries at the CX Dub show. That was unreal. And he's standing there signing stuff. You see Schlack, he looks like he's walked out of some kind of like a horror film. Have you ever driven home after being cut up and like maybe got pulled over by the police?
I don't think I've ever been pulled over by the police.
Okay, because some of these
Ever.
guys, like you hear stories, they got pulled over or they're going through a drive-through and they're all bandaged up and people just give them the weirdest looks, rightfully so, by the
Oh,
way.
yeah, I can. I've been like many times after a show when I've been bleeding everywhere. I've like dabbed myself down with paper towels when I've gone to a bar or a club. In fact, after the CXW show, me and Schlack went to Weatherspoons, like
Yeah,
famous Weatherspoons in England,
I love it.
just drinking beers, and the bouncers, the doorman, came over and asked if we can go wash up in the sink because we're bleeding everywhere. They didn't kick us out, didn't ask us to leave, just asked us if we can just get some of the blood off our faces. So maybe it's just England, maybe it's Essex.
Well, let me guess what Schleck did. Yeah, yeah, sorry, we're just wrestling. No problem, man. That's probably what Schleck did, right? Yeah, no problem, man. We're
Oh
just
yeah,
wrestling.
funny enough, the guy knew we were wrestlers the minute he seen us. Like he came over and understand you've been wrestling. Schlack was like the most polite man you've ever seen, covered in tattoos and 260 pounds jacked.
Yeah, I mean that's Schleck for you. He's all over the place. I think he was just in like a horror film as well. Um, but yeah, I couldn't see myself going to a place and sitting down and like having people bleed around me. It's too much right there. But again, I have no problem working around it, but I have a problem dealing with it. Like I don't know, outside of there. It sounds kind of weird. Um, but yeah. So, what else do you have planned coming up? I know you're in the Bleeding Gums. Do you want to spice things up in the bedroom? Well, go to adamandeve.com where you can get something for yourself or that special someone. Adamandeve.com and put in the code Krazy Train, that's crazy with a K, and get 50% off of most items and a bunch of free goodies. Again, it's adamandeve.com and put in my code Krazy Train, it's crazy with a K, and enjoy up to 50% off of most items and, of course, some great freebies.
Yeah,
Artist
it's
Death.
Artist Death.
Yeah.
Oh, there's two shows. I can't remember the other name of the show. I feel so bad. But it's an afternoon show and it's an evening show in Kirkcaldy, Scotland. So yeah, I've got that coming up. That's 2 weeks time from now as we record. And then the end of 21st of September, I got it written down. I've got a tournament of death for CCW, and I think that's me done for the month.
You're going to the CZW Tournament of Death?
Yeah, in Delaware.
Yeah, that's in September. It's the weekend of the 20th, 21st, and 22nd. It's all 3 days. Pondo is supposed to be booked on that show, I think. That's going to be a lot of fun. And are you excited to come to America to do that?
Oh, I'm super excited. Like TOD is the most historic deathmatch tournament in the world, in my opinion. Like CCW, maybe not the monster it once was, but it's still a big deal, especially to me. I'm an old wrestling fan. Like Pondo is there, big name at Pondo. Like the other, so it's me, it's Pondo, Remington Raw, who I've massive respect for, Tarzan Durant, who I've got big respect for, Big F and Joe, obviously, won last year, Joel Bateman, who me and Joel Bateman had a hell of a match this year, so I hopefully get to do that again. I feel bad because I'm forgetting names. JJ Escobar's there.
Yeah,
Either
from
way, it's an 8-man tournament. It's going to be, hopefully, it's going to be the best one ever, but it's going to be up there. It's going to be very good.
Yeah, I've never seen them before. Like, I've never been to one. I've seen photos here and there. It looks insane. And you have to have something like that outdoors. And just make sure you have some form of travel insurance because it covers you up to like 100,000 US dollars in any type of accidents or hospitalization, just in case. I'm not saying you'd need it. Is there anywhere in the States you haven't worked yet that you want to work aside from GCW?
Oh yeah, obviously I want to work GCW. Like everywhere, everywhere. I work like so. I want to work for the big companies. Obviously, Game Changer would be incredible. Like I like to do tin pots, like really bad wrestling. It makes me laugh. I like being involved in it. I want to do a show in like bumfuck nowhere in front of 10 people. Like I just want to get out there and make some money and get exposure. X Brand, they seem to be making noise. They look like a cool bunch of guys. I'd love to go work with them. Pretty much everyone.
Yeah, X Brand is easy to set you up with, by the way. So if you're going to be at the other shows, some of the guys are staying over and working on the 11th as well. Hopefully they have more shows. Horror Slam is another really fun promotion to work for. JJ Escobar works there. So if you're
Yeah.
around October 11th,
Oh yeah, I
it's
did see they're running they're Midwest, right? Yeah, they're the 11th.
yeah.
Yeah.
You won't be wrestling in front of 10 people though. It's like it's more than that. And people do really well with merchandise. Characters, like one thing I feel wrestling today misses are characters, right? Because back in the time of the 90s and 80s, even early 2000s, you would pay to watch people that are cooler than you supposedly, or these big characters. Do you feel the more mainstream companies lack that? Like maybe it's just a bunch of spot monkeys? Like this is what I noticed in AEW personally.
Oh, 100%, especially AEW. Like I understand it and I appreciate the style of wrestling, but I can't watch AEW. It bores the life out of me. If I'm going to watch wrestling, I'll watch 1992 WCW, where everybody's got a character, everyone's a gimmick, everybody's larger than life. Even the little guys are far bigger than I am. So I'd love to see wrestling go back to that. I don't think it's going to happen, not anytime soon anyway. But like everything we can do to get back to that, I'm going to be doing.
Yeah, I remember Disco Inferno. Like, I had him on the show once, and he always had the most perfect hair. He used to like spray the hell out of it just to keep it like that. I can't imagine anyone in deathmatch wrestling do that. Like having hair like that so perfect and going in there and getting beat up with light tubes. I feel as though there's so many different misconceptions with deathmatch wrestling. What do you think some of the biggest misunderstandings people have about deathmatch wrestling?
I think a large part of it is a lot of the deathmatch guys can't wrestle. Like they're untrained, which is absolute fucking nonsense. It's, like everybody I've wrestled has been like phenomenal wrestlers, better than most of the guys I wrestle every other week when I'm not doing light tubes and shit. All of them are great wrestlers. All of them are like really down to earth sound guys as well. There's no dickheads, none I've met yet. Um, the idea that no one's getting paid anything makes me laugh because it's like obviously it's not insane money, but if like I wouldn't be rolling on a barbecue for a hot dog and a handshake.
You'd be surprised what some people do. When I ran a promotion, I mean, I always wanted to pay people fairly, but there are people that just wanted to work as ring crew just to work. But we didn't have like weapons. We didn't really have weapons and things like that. We had a couple tables now and again. Um, but yeah, I think that is the biggest thing is people always say that backyard wrestlers are deathmatch wrestlers. And there are some, in defense of that statement, that are not trained very well. You find them mostly in Bumfuck USA. What about bar wrestling? Have you ever done that before?
Yeah, I've done a couple. I've done a couple. I'm not the biggest fan in the world. Like I think they're hard to wrestle, hard to work. I think they can work if you have like 1 or 2 matches. But if you do a show and there's like 6, 7 matches, and then you're getting the same stuff over and over again, and obviously my big thing of it is people talk about hitting the ground and how it hurts you, it fucks you up. My thing is the glass on the bar floor. It cuts you so much worse when there's no canvas. There's no like giving the boards of the ring, and you're just rolling around on a dance floor or like a sticky floor. It just slices you up every single time. So I'm not the biggest fan, but I get it, and like I'll do it, but I'd rather a wrestling ring.
I think I remember this is how I met Joel Bateman. Now I remember there was a show in Philadelphia that was at Photo Nightclub, and it was a no ring show, but it was this beautiful dance floor with like all the flickering lights, all the beautiful colors. And you had these guys like beating each other over the head with tubes and chairs. Like, man, you're going to mess up the floor. But the floor didn't get messed up. So it was some kind of really thick, foundation that was thick glass or whatever. Is there a weapon you haven't used yet that you want to use, or a couple?
I like the weed whacker spot. We call them strummers, but the weed whacker spot, I think it's an easy spot. It looks phenomenal, and I think a lot of guys when they get hit with it, they cover up and they roll away. And I'm pretty bad for just taking punishment, so I'd like to let it chew me up a little bit.
Yeah, there's some guys that like that. I noticed there's some guys that actually get off on getting beat with the Singapore cane. No one that we've worked with together, but there's some guys that come back to me and say something. So sometimes I feel like I should be getting paid extra for that. But weed whackers, I think they look really brutal. And what happens if that thing just starts up by accident, and then it starts carving into someone?
And then you get out the way.
Oh, yeah,
You
if
should
you
roll.
have if you're not all winded up. Yeah, I totally get it. So if people want to buy, how often do you come out with merchandise? Because I think Lou does a show. He has like a shirt every other day when I'm on his Instagram. You're not that often, are you? Do you?
No, I'm nowhere near that often. Like, I'm
Okay.
not as popular as Lou, but um, at the moment I'm trying to bring something out like every 2-3 months. I've just brought out a T-shirt, but I sold out immediately. I got another shirt on the deathmatchoutlaws.com. That's a Seozawa shirt. So that's available up there. I've got a shirt I'm bringing to TOD, which is a different design again. So I basically bring out a shirt when I sell out. So once I finish like my stock, I bring something else out. So a couple a year.
Okay, and if people want to buy your merchandise, and don't forget, guys, like buy the merchandise. Shirts are cool to have. Trust me, you'll get sick of one style. Just get another one. The Seozawa shirts are to die for because Seozawa is one of the most talented artists I've ever
Yeah.
seen. So buy his shirts. And where do we go again besides Deathmatch Outlaws? Do you have your Instagram, your Twitter, all that?
Okay, so you can buy merch from deathmatchoutlaws.com. You can buy merch from DannyDarkoUK.com. My Facebook is Danny Darko UK. My Instagram is Danny Darko UK. My Twitter is the Danny Darko UK because someone beat me to it, and I'm not very good at Twitter. And that's like all my socials.
Where'd you come up with your name?
My name was given to me. So I went from a really silly cartoony gimmick that was a little bit offensive. I didn't pick it, and then I hated doing it. I hated doing this gimmick. It was very very cartoony. So they said do something else, do something else, and they put me in a tag team with Big F and Joe years ago. And funny enough, WWE's Paige, AEW's Saraya, her mum picked the name because she was a fan of the movie. I hate the movie. I've seen it 2 or 3 times because
Yeah.
I watch everything a couple of times. I hate the movie, but she picked the name, and we just ran with it. And when I came back from wrestling, I'd already built some. I thought I had reputation in the name. Obviously, I didn't. But now I'm stuck with it, and I don't see the point in changing it. So
Well, wait a second. You watch movies one or two times. What movie have you watched the most that you think you know every single line to?
RoboCop.
Really?
Yeah, I've seen that movie at least 40, 50 times.
Okay, I'm like beyond sick in the head. I've watched this movie with Dustin Hoffman at least 90 to 100 times, the movie Tootsie. I don't know if you know the
Yeah,
movie. Before you, yeah.
yeah, I've seen it. Yeah,
Ask me any part of that movie or any line. I know every single line. And when they had the play, I should have auditioned for some role in that play, even if it was just something, because I know all the scenes. I don't know why I'm like fascinated by the movie. Uh, don't ask me. It's probably because it's like old New York. It has something to do with acting and theater, whatever. But RoboCop's a good one. I've seen it once or twice, but I don't know it probably as well as you would. Um, Seriously. And your appearance is coming up. If people want to find out, make sure you go on his Instagram, buy tickets, buy merchandise, and just support your local wrestling indie scene, especially with death matches, because these guys are not up there making the millions and hundreds of thousands like they should, because they do way more for pro wrestling, I feel, than guys and wusses that you see in these lighter companies that are all foo-foo. Anyway, thank you so much for your time, and sit tight.